Coming at you all the way live from the town, Oakland, California. This is Revolution. And that is me trying to play Slayer if Slayer was playing country. So I hope that came across. And I hope you think about that every time you hear the intro to this show. Anyway, enough about that. Today's guest is Dr. Robin Petering of Southern California. She has an organization called LENSCO that does outreach work with homeless youth. She also is a partner with K-Town for All, Koreatown for All, another great organization in Southern California that's doing a lot of work with the Unhoused. And she has a podcast called Hello Dogtown that showcases, I shouldn't say showcases, highlights homeless youth. I found Dr. Petering from another frequent show guest, Kelvin Martinez, who had retweeted something she said about vaccination rates of homeless youth. And I immediately followed and sent a message and asked Dr. Petering to come on the show. And she agreed. And we had a very long conversation about homeless youth, policy change in that arena, on the ground, real work that people are doing. I think they're doing great work. What it's like to operate inside of the nonprofit industrial complex. We went over all that. It was a very good conversation. I only had her for a short time. The hour flew by. And it was also the first time that I tried to do something via video. So there's a video of our conversation as well. So if you prefer to see stuff, become a patron. There are links in the description to become a patron. You'll get bonus content from several of the shows. You will get things like the video interviews. It worked out pretty well, so that's how we're going to be doing it moving forward. Merchandise, you name it, you get it. So become a patron. Help the show grow. If you feel so inclined, if you have the means, become a patron. And for those of you that are patrons, thank you. Appreciate you so much, because you are helping this show continue, literally. Because it's more expensive than people think to do this to the level that we're trying to do it at. So live streams. So every day this show, we release a new episode for the general public on Wednesdays and Sundays. If you're a patron, you definitely get them 24 hours before. And every Wednesday, you can catch a live stream via Zero Books. Zero Books has been hosting our Tuesday live streams. And also, they've been hosting the clips that I make off the conversations that we have here, or even from the live streams. And they've been doing very, very well. So thank you guys for all your support on that end. There's also going to be a link to Zero Books. But also, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and every Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I do a live stream with my co-host, writer for Black Agenda Report, Huffington Post, and several other outlets. Also putting his book together. Hopefully that will see the light through Zero Books, Pascal Robert. So We do this live stream. It's a lot of fun. It's very, very interactive. It has been growing. The last few have been amazing. Looks like every Saturday we'll be doing a stream with good friend of show, good friend in real life, Marcus from the Left Flank Vets. We don't know what we're going to call it. 3 black ass dudes on Saturday. We don't know. But it went very well until my internet died. And I'm the one hosting the stream. So, yeah. Anyway, here's my conversation with Dr. Robin Petering, co-founder of LENSCO, an organization that does great outreach work with homeless youth, and also host of Hello Dogtown, that highlights the struggles of homeless youth in Southern California. So, thank you. All right, and we are live. This is Revolution. This is my first time doing a video from this platform. Usually I do just audio. So, welcome. I'm speaking today with Dr. Robin Petering. We met via Twitter.
Yeah.
She had some interesting tweets when it came to vaccinating our unhoused population in Southern California. And I came across your profile through another friend of show and friend, Kelvin Martinez, who also does some outreach work in Southern California as well. And you were talking about the vaccine rates for, was it just homeless youth or just homeless in general?
Well, yeah, awesome. Thank you for having me. I do research, as I'm a social worker, but also community-based researcher. And I work with the unhoused community, and I mainly do research in young people experiencing homelessness here in LA. So the research that I've done is based on a study that we conducted this summer, is with young people between the ages of 18 to 26. But I believe that kind of the stuff that we found in this study would apply to the broader population of the unhoused community, like regardless of age. So, yeah, all.
Now, I do have to ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
You have a PhD in social work.
Yep.
What
does that do? What does that
prompted
mean?
you? Yeah, what prompted you to go that route instead of going, I could take this doctorate and go to Mackenzie with it?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I started out as a street outreach worker in Eugene, Oregon, and I was working
I know Eugene well.
Yeah, I love Eugene.
Is that where you're from?
No. I'm from Southern California and then moved up to Oregon. I'm a duck. I went to U of O.
You're a duck. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a bookstore music venue over there.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the name of it. It was right by campus.
Oh.
It shut down not too long ago.
I mean, I know the Wow Hall. They had a lot of really funky music venues.
Weird hippie. There's weird hippie stuff in Eugene.
I know. I kind of miss it now. I hated it when I was there, but now I miss it.
I was there
drum circles. So it's true.
A lot of hacky sack and frisbee golf.
Yeah, it was great though for going to college. It's kind of perfect, the perfect college experience. And now I'm like far enough out of it that I'm like, oh yeah, Grateful Dead is cool. It's true.
There's a Voodoo Donuts over there in Eugene as well.
Yeah, I do love Voodoo Donuts a lot.
I remember, I was there. Oh, damn, I was there just 2019. There's Old something is the name of the music venue. I can't really remember.
Oh, I don't know. I won't be able to pull it out.
The tour.
Who'd you see?
There. I was there playing.
Oh, amazing. Cool. Even better.
So back to Eugene. You started working in Eugene, which actually Oregon has a very serious issue with unhoused throughout the state.
Yeah, throughout the state for sure. So I was in Oregon doing street outreach. I went from Eugene, Oregon, and I was working with young people there, like at a drop-in center for youth. And I also did that in Portland for a little bit. But it was one of those things, and I tell a story a lot of like you're working and like engaging with young people and really seeing like the crisis firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
Um and at the time I was 21, 22, right? So it was like peers helping peers. These were young people that were like really like 12 months younger than me at some in some cases. But I came to like the really quickly you come to the realization that it's like you're hitting the same problem over and over, right? People are experiencing the same
Mm-hmm.
like challenge and the same barrier and wall, and you're like, this something isn't wrong with this person, it's wrong with the system, right? And like it just like
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't take you long to figure that out. Even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, as like a 21-year-old, like I figured that out pretty quickly, and it's really frustrating. So I kind of was like, oh, I want to dedicate my life to this, or like I wanted to pursue a career of like, I was like, this system's fucked up, or whatever's happening, the way that we're engaging in like
Yeah.
addressing this issues fucked up and not working. Like, I need to like figure out how to fix it or like be a part of the fixing of it. Was kind of like my naive way of deciding what to do with my life. And then I, I was like, oh, I want to learn about homelessness in a very deep way, in
Mm-hmm.
the policy aspect of it. And I was like, I think I should go to Los Angeles. It seems like the place to go, because of Skid Row at the time was the capital of homelessness. And
Mm-hmm.
look, a decade later, it's turns out it's still that
Still
way.
is.
Yeah, and even more so. So that's what brought me down to UCLA to pursue a degree in social work. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was going through the degree, and I really like I've always had this idea or kind of a motivation of getting at these like policy. We need massive policy changes, right? Like that this is
Mm-hmm.
we're never going to be able to solve homelessness on the individual level, right? Because it's not a
No,
problem at the individual
not
level.
at all.
So like I've always been really focused on figuring out the policy aspect of it, and it was kind of my thing. And then one person, like one random someone, like maybe a teacher, was like, like research can you can do a lot of research with like
Mm-hmm.
addressing policy. Like research can help like shift policy. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I applied for a PhD program and ended up going that route, and then got deeper into looking at the experiences of people as they are on the street, the experiences of, I really, a lot of my work focuses on interpersonal violence and the trauma of violence experienced on the street. And but now I'm more focused on like programs, what works, what doesn't, kind of how people engage in different types of programs and how that supports people or what barriers come up. Yeah.
So, as you're a young person working in Oregon and you're
Uh-huh.
starting to see like the day in day out grind of working in an unhoused community, do you start to feel like this is the system is self-perpetuating, like it's always going to keep spitting out the same results because it keeps asking the same questions of itself?
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell this. There was just a moment too in Oregon. It's different as you go to different cities and places and times,
I
and
agree.
um in the state system, particularly for youth, like kind of changes state to state. And there was a moment where I was working with a young woman, and she was my age, and um she had had four at, at the age 21, she had had four children
Mm-hmm.
that were all like removed
Oof.
from her custody and put into the child
Mm-hmm.
welfare system. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but she had also grown up in that system and had experienced like severe traumas and like really kind of, this isn't every case, but just it was like the most extreme kind of stuff that you can think in your head of of abuse and trauma growing up. And so she was taken from her home at a very young age and placed in the system. And then here she is as a young mother. And it was kind of like, and, and you're just like, this is not this young woman's fault. Like how could this
Yeah.
not be her path? Like the way that the experiences that she had as a young child going in and out of, being a baby in different foster care like homes, being abused in those
Mm-hmm.
homes, um,
Mm-hmm.
having people come in and out of your life, growing up in, courts and supervised visits, like, you know, and then because it was the moment too when it's it's really like as a social worker, really the first time that you see a child being removed from their parent is like very you'll never forget it. It's not like it's very, very traumatizing to watch that process. And I've seen it happen a couple
Yeah.
times. And yeah, kind of witnessing the like how detached the young mother was when her child was taken into custody. And you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, this is this whole cycle. Like it's just,
Yeah.
and like, what do I do? I can't do anything and I can't be mad at anyone. And it was really
Mm-hmm.
bleak. Like it was really bleak. And, but then,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but it was
Sorry.
like, there's no, how can I work? Where is the pressure point to solve that issue? It was just like such the cycle. And, that's kind of like one of the things that I'll never forget. Yeah.
I I know the feeling
Hmm.
when you see things that are outside of your control like that, and you look around and everybody seems to be like, even the people that are a part of it seem to be
Hmm.
like, this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
This is just what we do. And then especially if you're around like a more seasoned person, and I use finger quotation,
Yeah.
seasoned person that's been in the system for a while, like a coworker or whatever, and
Hmm.
they kind of look at you like, oh, don't worry, you'll get used to it. Like, this is
Yeah.
just what we need to do, and this is for the greater good. And you start, I don't know, for me, I started asking myself, like, because before I worked in that world, like for a nonprofit, I just lived amongst them and
Hmm.
lived in it. So I knew people in it. So it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't that shocking to me, certain aspects of it, but to see how the system churns it out and
Hmm.
keeps churning out the same types of people to the point where it's just hard to work with people. Like, I have friends that work at the shelters still, and the emergency shelters, where now that I guess they're not emergency shelters anymore. Now they're permanent
Yeah.
hotels, right? Um, and she cries on her way in, and she cries on her way out.
Yeah.
And it's like that brutal on you because you do care. Even the people that I don't agree with, the things that they may do working there, I do believe that you have to have some level of care about you
Yeah.
to work in that field. You're a really horrible person if you go in there like, I'm a careerist. Like you're really, you have no soul if you can do that. And I don't think anybody can do that. But I did see, and I wanted to ask you about this, that there are people that will take on certain responsibilities because they know, like, oh, if I take this on, I can move up. Especially with
Mhm.
the shelters, that was a big thing with that. Like, if I go on and take this project on, I can move up in the company. So it behooved them to really keep down numbers of incidents of violence, and
Yeah.
you know dealing with COVID outbreak incidents. Um, and I feel like that is a bit of a transparent thing. I think the people that they serve can see that, so there is
Mhm.
a level of distrust.
Totally. There absolutely is. I was just
How do
reading
you deal
actually a
with that?
paper about the distrust. I mean, one of the things just like that's coming you talking about this is we just really don't value that work, the frontline work, the on the ground work and on a
Mhm.
dollar level, right? We're not paying people enough. And um, it's very easy to get an entry. Those are, and like we say, this is entry level job, right? And
Mhm.
and we're also at a time right now where we need to we need a really robust service system. We need to really just value that work at a different level, right? I think one of the things that was happening a lot, I mean, obviously the conversation's still happening um, about defunding the police, right? And
Yeah.
how many of the resources that are happening. But the summer when it was really active and we were really looking at
Oh.
budgets and investigating it, or um, it was like how much a street cop is getting paid like 80, 90K or something like
Mm-hmm.
that at minimum, not including their
Mm-hmm.
overtime they're
Overtime.
accruing and all that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
you're the like kind of matching social worker or case manager at the same level is getting maybe 40 if they're lucky, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and
With a
working
higher education level too
higher education level exactly.
that they
And
paid for.
and yeah, that they exactly. And it's just like that mismatch is and so how are we even like that like struggles. So it's a huge struggle for me because I think we're constantly talking about like, oh yeah, like defund the police and reallocate to these other places. I'm like, if you want to reallocate money there too, you also have to like really value and get people to go into those positions and bring people in there. And we haven't showed up for like the frontline workers and folks in those roles in a different way. And I do think though there's like a bigger conversation about I don't have the answer of like how do we get people to go into homelessness services and make it like a
It's
great job? It sucks. Yeah.
does it go down to there are people that are police officers that didn't grow up wanting to be police officers that fell into a career because it pays well. Out here in the Bay Area, it's a six-figure job walking in the door, and with overtime, you can make some really good money.
Hmm.
I'm sure where you are is very similar.
Yeah.
Um, so, how do you get people that care? Not even that care. How do you just get people to want to get into that field when you're going to walk in the door going, you're not going to make enough money to pay off your student loan?
Yeah.
Opposed to going, you go to law enforcement, you don't even have to do 4 years
Yeah.
of
But like
school.
a couple
You
15
take
months
some
or something.
courses. Yeah,
Yeah.
you take some courses to make you think you understand the Constitution, and and
Jeez.
and and dealing with law enforcement as much as I have as a
Mhm.
worker and just being a colored dude in this world, um, they don't have the greatest grasp of the Constitution or even uh, the laws they're there to enforce.
Yep.
And you're going to make double what this other person makes.
Hmm. Yeah.
And like that's that's never part of the I feel like that's never part of the conversation because people just want to see the problem out of their face. So put them in hotels. Like the hotels to me are it's a building that's already built.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about permits and how expensive low income housing is, and especially in
Yeah.
California. It's ridiculous. But I feel like a lot of these hotels are in certain areas.
Yeah.
And what I've been noticing is it feels like real time redlining, especially with COVID as well.
Yeah. It's something, I mean, there's, yeah, I mean, who knew? We weren't expecting to obviously be in a pandemic and a public health crisis, and
Mhm.
this, and there's this need for rapid, like immediate response to a crisis, and we live it and breathe it every moment, and it's changing, right? I'm, it's just. It's actually been like really fascinating as a scientist and a social scientist. I was like, wow, we're doing like real public health, like this is like real research and crazy. But that's we run a huge yeah. It's like, oh, it's like a it's really wild. But yeah, when you make really rapid policy decisions, they have long-term outcomes. But that's like kind of
Mhm.
you know, that's where the vaccine stuff is so interesting, and like this concept of really we have to be very thoughtful on the equity and making sure that we're considering all these things and unrolling the vaccine in ways that consider disparities and but also in the way that's most effective, the way that will have
Mhm.
like the greatest public health benefit. And but then there's also these like logistical challenges, right? It's like, and
Yeah.
and it's just kind of like we also have to do things really fast, and it's like how do you balance all those things of like, well, okay, this hotel is ready to go, we could put people in it, but but then we also need to, they're all important,
Yeah.
and the balancing act becomes really challenging and potentially sometimes really stifling. I don't have a good answer for that. I don't have the answer, but I'm like, it's just like this battle, right? Of what's most important at the moment. And then I think what the real challenge becomes as we continue to evolve, like the target's always moving, right? So then everyone's mad, like basically. And
Well, also too, like right when this thing is happening, you also have this situation with the prison system where the
yeah.
state pretty much, sued the entire prison system. It's like, you're not letting any of these cats out.
Hmm.
we're not we're not taking them. So you got all these guys stuck in their cell that are literally free, and then they're incrementally letting them out, and they had to stay at the hotels. But because it was so few at a time, right? I think it was like two. I think maybe it was Santa Rita or San Quentin was releasing like two at a time.
Wow.
You know, um, I, people didn't get. What's interesting is, and I think that's an interesting point you bring up. People that were advocates for incarcerated people were definitely advocating let them out.
Yep.
They're dying inside, and they are dying inside. I actually have friends inside San Quentin. It's the stories I hear are they will make you cry. They're
Yeah.
very, very sad on both sides. The guards are losing people. The inmates are losing people. They're literally trying to work together so people don't get sick and die because it's that horrible inside. And they would like to let them out too, but it's like, where do you go?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've had a conversation like this with a friend about, because we have George Gascon, right? I don't know if you
Mhm.
followed his day one. He dropped all of these things, that all these policy changes and commitments that he were going to make that were really fantastic, but was having a
Mhm.
conversation about like the decarcerating thing. Like decarceration is great, right? But you know, the prison system is the result. It's a replacement of social service system and a safety net that it is in itself a housing system, or like replacement for a mental health system. That's what it's been serving as for forever in California and other places. And it's amazing that we're going to move away from that as being our primary function, or its primary function, but we haven't built up like it. We don't have the other system yet. Like our mental health resources, our
Yeah,
community
yeah.
resources don't exist. So people are, how do we really need to address that ASAP. And yeah, that's another huge
So
question.
yeah, so the hotel I was at actually got some. So you had to quarantine. They were releasing the people, and they had to quarantine for a couple weeks at an adjacent hotel,
Hmm.
which was we called it the COVID hotel because everyone there was positive, and then mine was a shelter in place hotel or a
Yeah,
safer ground. I don't know, you might have a different terminology
something like that. Yeah, shelter in place, something.
so if you qualified, you could go over to our spot.
Uh-huh.
And if you think about it, that means that okay, you got released and your family doesn't want you. If
If
you
yeah,
have family.
if they're still in the picture and connected, yeah.
And so it was a lot of lost dudes
Hmm.
and parole officers looking for dudes that, we don't put ankle monitors on people. That's not, our job. Or do we want to even put ankle monitors on people? But in a wet shelter if you just got out of a very dry prison.
Yeah.
Um, you are going to find your way to your whatever your poison is.
Yeah.
So it definitely made for, I don't even have the right adjective to use, what the environment was like. But and then couple that with there was rules that there was no armed security.
Yeah.
You know, part of me is like, oh, that's cool, I guess. You really got to talk people down, but we're also not making sure the people there aren't armed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's,
I mean, there's a lot of, even just going back to the homelessness kind of service system and permanent supportive housing, right? We talk about permanent supportive housing
Mhm,
as a
mhm,
solution, and we look at a lot of models of like congregate housing. So we have the giant buildings with all permanent supportive housing units and all people that were formerly chronically homeless, or they have scattered site, right, where people are put into units or a couple units in bigger buildings with mixed incomes or in different communities. And usually, from a lot of research points to scattered site having like a lot better outcomes over time. And yeah, there is something about
really.
congregate and kind of the social networks and the networks that you're able to keep. Risk kind of
Mhm.
finds itself, and um, pro-social behaviors also like find themselves. So more often, when I don't know, there's a lot of benefits to integrating folks back into like community supports, right? But that takes a little bit
Yeah.
more work, right? And a little bit more connections and but it's is pretty like incredible with COVID, and right, that we're not just um fully like infusing our service system with um you know resources, right? And I think we see a lot of like the community members stepping up, like mutual aid is
Mhm.
like tons of groups that have been really active and more so active. And I work with a group called K-Town for All, and yeah, we
Doing great work, by the way. I don't know anyone personally from there, but I'm really, from what I can see, you guys are doing some fabulous work, and shout
yeah,
out to K Town for All.
it's wild. And we kind of like, we were like, we stop giving us money. We're getting too many donations that we can even like process, right? Because people don't know what to do and
Mhm.
where to put their energy and resources. So they've really, like, the general public has really gotten onto mutual aid. But that's only like, K-Town for All can't house people or give people jobs or connect them to employment. So, and we,
Mhm.
we're so limited in the scope of like what we're able to do to give back. So it's really, I mean, we K-Town for All, we focus a lot on like the policy advocacy because we see that, but is a huge component of what needs to be done. But yeah, I mean, like uh, yeah, it's gonna get worse. I hate like it's really like
I
we're only at
I've
the
been
beginning.
It's been something that I repeat on this show
Okay.
quite a bit, that I'm expecting it to get very much worse, because really these executive orders from the state on to the
Mhm.
federal ones were really titular when it comes to like doing anything.
Yeah.
We talked about it the other day. It's like you hit pause on a movie to go use a bathroom, but it didn't even stop the film, and you get back and it's over.
Yeah.
So you're talking about some people haven't paid their rent for a year,
Yeah.
and you're going to tell them that the whole thing is due,
Yeah.
and you can start the process to evict them while they're sitting in there. So basically, you're just, if you're a landlord that really wants your, especially a corporate landlord,
Mhm.
you're sitting here like this, like it's coming,
Yeah.
my money's coming, or you're getting the fuck out.
Yep.
And uh 30 to 40 million people we're looking at countrywide. um
Yeah.
Maybe a third of that would have been in California. Could be, I'll knock on plywood.
I mean,
Hopefully
yeah,
it's
and
not going to be California.
those estimates are almost like dated now. That was,
That
like
was
this
all the way back
summer
in June.
that we were
Yeah.
talking about that those papers were coming out. So yeah, I mean, some of the research that we're doing, and we just did like a little survey with a community partner, and the employment impact for young people is really, and we're working with you know p- young people 18 to 26, and I talk about, they were the last ones into the job market. They're the first ones out, and they're going to stay out for a really long time. Same with the housing market, right? Just in terms of, we've been working with
Mm.
young people for years trying, and like they've been working with the service provider, and maybe they got into rapid rehousing, they finally got their first apartment, and that's that whole, like, several steps are going to go backwards. And yeah, they're aging out of the service system, and it's just like we don't even know what's coming. But yeah.
School,
Oh,
yeah,
the school.
school having to be closed, and
Yeah.
so I want to ask you about that because you do work with the youth. So we didn't have many kids because part of and this is up in Oakland
Mhm.
in Alameda County. So again, I can't speak for LA County and what they were doing, but I know the requirement was you had to be like a very vulnerable population. So older people, generally diabetes, heart problems,
Mhm.
chronic homelessness, um, or severe mental illness. So we did definitely have some younger people in there,
Mhm.
and there was a few kids, um, but of course they couldn't go to school.
Yeah.
And then I find out, oh yeah, we ain't never been to school. What the hell is a school? So within people that were in the facility, also as we call them guests, that used to teach, and some donated supplies, we
Uh-huh.
start doing school,
Oh, great.
right? Because people need to feel normal.
Yeah.
And now that's all gone, and the kids didn't get registered because they don't even have the ability to Zoom school.
Yeah.
Um, so how is that? This is a two-part question. How are you seeing it affect young people now, and what is your fear 2 years down the road? Let's say this is
Oh,
all over and we can
yeah.
be quote unquote normal again.
I mean, I talked to, there's some school advocates here, and one of the things too to just think about, like, the school system, especially for young people that are in, housing situations that aren't stable, how important school was not only for, like, education, obviously, but that social aspect and that support. And maybe it
Mm-hmm.
was a place that youth went and were safe for a little bit, or just had some stability in their life for a couple of hours. And how, of course, important connections are to peers and things like that. And schools, I think we've learned all through the pandemic or at the beginning how, like, much of a resource they were to so many families in terms of
Yeah.
meals and all those things. So we see those impacts right now. And I don't, in like I that's like obviously an immediate thing. And we just, like, we can't even really get to how many people are being affected by, yeah, exactly, of like, I'm not going to Zoom school, or my it's not happening. um and then, I think we're seeing a lot more about of some gang activity uptick in, like, neighborhoods and things like that. And I talked about I've
Yeah.
and I hate making that correlation, right? That I don't, but it is a reality that there's one of the biggest predictors for kind of crime and gang activity is um economy, right? People is when the economy is
Yeah.
bad, and when there's no access to jobs, when there's no access to resources. I've I did research on young people who are also gang involved, and that's often, like, a place where people get social support and access to resources. They're like, other people offer them things like money, clothes, like shelter. Often has comes with gang involvement. And so I think we might, like, be that's some communities might be feeling that right now. Um, but the other, man, I also just keep thinking, I remember a couple years ago of, like, the impact of Katrina, right? In New
Yeah.
Orleans, in the school systems, right? That was a thing that they have.
All charter.
Yeah, but just like the 10 years later, like seeing
Hmm.
how the students that were displaced and taken out of school for like what 6 months or longer, the
Hmm.
long-term impact on, I think they did some studies side by side versus students that did it. And like we're going to potentially see disparities like that. Um like the magnitude compared to what happened then is just really, we don't even, it's going to be really shocking. And I keep thinking about that. Because of course there's so many more people, so much longer. It's like it's just on steroids essentially with that
Yeah.
impact of that. Um, I don't think we know or have like the grasp on like kind of the multi layers of kind of the social uh like the social stress that's happening to society right now, and how
Hmm.
we're living in the human experiment though. Like we don't really know when this is over, and or what it's going to look like on the immediate other side. But I think it's just there's no doubt that we'll have like a decades of impact from this stuff. um Sucks.
Do you think we'll see another Katrina situation where, um, because kids have been kept out of school so long, and I'm hoping that the LA Teachers Union stands strong and is able to not be forced back to
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
because I think the state said we don't have to vaccinate teachers, or the CDC came out and said we don't have to vaccinate teachers.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah, that's so stupid. I mean, yeah, at the same time I want this, I don't want school to go back, right? One of my best friends is a UTLA teacher, and yeah, and she's like it's depressing, it's bleak. It's not school in the same way either as
Mhm.
forcing students to go back, and it's of course dangerous. And like work, the COVID crisis, like we all want to be done with it. Like forcing people back to work has been the one thing that has kept it going, obviously.
Yeah, and I find it really interesting that a state like California, that said, well, we're not going to do the Rose Bowl this year because we think it's a super spreader event,
Yeah.
right? We're gonna this big money making thing that we usually do, and we're not going to have any organized sporting events in this in state, and everybody cheers for California, and what a brave move, right? That's a
Mhm.
brave move. And then you go back a few months later and go, well, we saved the football players, but F those teachers.
Yeah.
Because Miss Johnson can't throw for 4,000 yards, so f
God.
f her,
I mean, it's just
and
like
that's the way it feels.
so clear that our politicians, our leaders are just, make decisions based on uh, their powerful friends that are loudest in their ear, and threaten their future campaign donations the most on like uh, the whole Newsom reopening, and what was it, the California Restaurant Association or whatnot, like
Yeah,
basically strong arming him in a way that was just so transparent. And yeah, the school thing, um, it's very clear that, yeah, not the teachers that are asking, yelling, telling Joe Buscaino to sue LAUSD. It's other people. Yeah. People that I guess want their
it's
kids to go back
it's
to school. I don't know.
I have a 2-year-old. I have
Mhm.
a few kids. I have far too many children. I shouldn't have this many children. Too many little base children. And he was going to this Chinese day school.
Mhm.
He's 2, and it was really cool. And he was starting to learn Mandarin, and he was finally adjusting to it, where like he didn't cry when I dropped him off.
Oh.
He was all excited. I got excited, and he's learning new shit, and it had to stop, right?
Mhm.
And now I have to deal with him a little bit more than maybe I would. I shouldn't say like to, but just I wish he was in a school environment, because I cannot teach him
Yeah.
the way I'd like him to be taught, because I need him to learn certain skills around other people.
Totally. That's so real. And yeah, I know. And we, it, the impact on young people is going to be really big, right? They're developing from
Mm-hmm.
2 to 26, right? I mean, that's some of the, and they don't, how, they don't necessarily get that time back the way that I know we all complain, like
Yeah.
everyone in their like 30s of like, I'm not going to get these years back, but it doesn't really matter. Like it's going to be the same as like the year before. It's okay. But, yeah, I mean, I hate getting older. It sucks, but like I'll survive. But the developmental impact and the access to things like for like youth experiencing homelessness, right? That's one thing that I've been talking about with my like colleagues. I'm like, should we start advocating? Because like when you turn 25, you expire from all these like things, resources that were available to you. The state says you're an adult, so you can no longer go to a youth shelter because now you are 26 years old, and so you have to go to Skid Row Union Mission. And like, so there is like a time delineation on some things, and
Mm-hmm.
like it's just not, but time is stopped. So like, and you can't progress in the ways that you weren't able to, that you're supposed to be progressing at these ages. Like it's hard to go to college. Who wants to pay for college if you're doing Zoom college? It's hard to get a
Move.
job. So if you need to get a job to stabilize, to get into your next apartment before you're 25, like it's going to be a lot harder. So, if not impossible. Yeah, I don't know. It's bad. And I think like
And
we're
we
kind of,
lost a lot of worker protections with Prop 22.
oh, Prop 22 is just gonna, that one's, it's like, it's so grim and it's gonna be so bad because we were already at a place that, I mean, that's one of the things in Los Angeles and California that I've seen working with youth is the young people that I work with, they are in college. They're working 2, 3 jobs at one time. Like they're doing all the things. They're 22 years old. I didn't do that at 22 years old. I was like half as a third as productive as what youth in poverty are kind of forced to do um, by there's no social system to support them. And even working 3 jobs, the wages don't match with the rent, and you have no benefits, you have no job security, there's no room for upward mobility and all those things. So it's a losing game. It's been a losing game, and now with Prop 22, it's just like going to exacerbate that. Because they've taken
Yeah.
away the options for benefits and even made it harder and harder. And yeah, so they're
Well, I
dominating the
think
workforce. Yeah.
SoCal saw the first hit.
Yep.
Oh, the first hit of the Vons markets in SoCal, they
Yeah.
fired all the union drivers
Yeah. Shout out Mike
and
Dickerson for
replacing them with
breaking that
like Oregon.
story. K-Town for All policy co-chair.
Oh, is that who? Oh, well,
Yeah,
shout out,
he's our,
Mike.
yeah, shout out Mike, a good friend. Yeah.
Well, come on the show, Mike. Let's
Yeah.
talk. Let's talk Prop 22 and other shit, Mike.
Yeah.
Um, come on. I'm not a bad guy. To me, it's like it's the ultimate failure of society, of the system of capital,
Oh,
right? Like, I'm going to obliterate your workforce because this whole system revolves around the need for surplus labor.
yep.
And the biggest boon we could have ever gotten was COVID, because there's surplus labor is falling from the sky.
Yep.
And, you know, maybe you read Piketty's Capital or glanced at it. It's a lot of numbers and really long. Even the audio book is a bit much. Ultimately, he's saying, look, we're producing more and have been for the last 40, 50 years as a society and getting so much less. So when you tell this story of you're dealing with unhoused youth in college,
Yeah.
And we also have on the debt collective people who also come out of, a lot of them come out of UCLA.
Yep.
Shout out Hannah Appel and the debt collective. Talking about ending student debt. And I watched on Fox News today, I believe, or yesterday it was, where Brian Kilmeade from Fox News was talking about how horrible it would be to just eliminate debt, because now not Joe Biden, but Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are talking about eliminating $50,000 worth of federal student loan debt. And Fox News was talking about what a moral, what evil thing would happen to our American children if we eliminated this load of worthless debt. And kind of the crux of this conversation, like, look, you're only going to make 40 grand doing this job that's going to help thousands of people a day in your life. You're going to help all these people if you get into this field. Or you can have a job that's going to pay you a hell of a lot more, and you're not really going to help that many people, if anybody at all, in law enforcement. You're always going to be called after the fact.
Yeah. Yep. But that's why those big structural policy changes are so important, right? Like, I just like, college should be free. Now that it's required, kind of, if you want to actually have a career path and whatnot. I don't know. Yet figuring out ways to pay people better and making those policy changes at the state level or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And making it like a job where we value people and protect their health and mental health as they go through and work at shelters and or other like really high secondary trauma jobs, high risk, I mean, that's one thing that I see working with the nonprofit system. I kind of work alongside it now. I actually don't have a nonprofit. I run a for-profit LLC with my community. It's because I was like, nonprofit, like we can make profit and we can still do good things. And we're kind of like a social impact type of thing.
It's not like nonprofits don't make money.
Yeah, exactly. It's just then you have to have a board and pretend like you do things, and I'm like, I don't. That's all like, yeah, it's like not necessary. I think
I'd rather, be upfront about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because you're also not making $1 million trillion.
No, yeah,
Let's be honest.
yeah. It's kind of like this, white women and nonprofits. It's just like, you don't need more of them, right? And it's the whole thing.
They do go hand in hand.
Yeah, exactly. So, I forgot what I was talking about, but at nonprofits, we see, the frontline workers just churn through, and like the turnover rate is just incessant, and how that turnover rate, how can we talk all the time about like how important stability, building relationships with like is really important part of getting people housed, right? Or having a long-term impact and positive impact on people that that needs resources and support. But if you can't pay your frontline workers well enough or value them well enough, they leave, then you have to onboard it. Like turnover is expensive, and it has a long-term impact in the way how good we are to address bigger problems as well. So it's kind of like a bigger organizational structure.
No, I literally saw people have emotional breakdowns and walk out the door, because if you're not, I whistle blew what was going on inside. Yeah. So since I've left, there's been significant changes made for the safety of workers. I hope also for the safety of the people that are staying there, because that was my big issue, like seeing so much violence.
Yeah.
And then have it projected on me, and I'm like, look, man, I'm whoever you think you've been dealing with in this world.
Yeah.
I'm from your world, so we can't have that relationship where you come at me all crazy. So let's understand that we need to be on the same level, because we're not playing that craziness. And it. You think you make you start to see that they start to attract a certain type of individual. Like, okay, we're not going to get the Dr. Robin Peterings of the world to come down here. We got to get the person that thinks $20 an hour is a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So we're literally recruiting from the base the people that we're hiring, we're literally recruiting from that base.
Yeah. And
which I don't necessarily have that much of a problem with.
There's a lot of benefit to that, right? But then what we've seen in a lot of, like I've seen in some organizations, is that often comes with a lot of, if people have been kind of experienced the system from the other end, they come with a lot of perceptions of like following the rules, pulling people up by their bootstraps. If I did it and I put in the effort, they should be able to do it. And kind of not a little bit of mismatch often in the like overall understanding of the structural complexities of poverty and, like systemic racism and white supremacy, like all that stuff it's not, if you've lived in the system, like those are the messages that are being told to you, right? So, and you're experiencing on the back end, and there's all these problems in it. So it's makes sense that then when you work in that system, that those are also the things that you might subscribe to, or kind of, expect other people to experience as well, if that makes sense. Kind of.
Oh no, it makes total sense because I saw it on a daily basis. There was one person I worked with that definitely was coming off of a addiction to opiates, was on the street, prostituting. Like when I say coming off, I mean like this job stopped this person from having to do that, and was extremely judgmental, very bootstrappy mentality. To like, well, hey, this person's on doing this and F this person and don't take that person seriously. And to the point where this person was like hiding the needles we were getting from the needle exchange because they thought that if people saw the needles out for them to take,
oh wow,
that they would take more than they needed.
Yeah.
Because they came off having and they're like, well, they're just going to take more. And I'm like, well, we're not paying for it. The state ain't paying for it. It's don't worry about it.
Yeah.
To the point where like the needle exchange people got mad at me.
Oh gosh.
Man,
Well, yeah,
we're not
like,
seeing any in this dumpster.
I see it more often, or like sometimes more often than not, the like deserving versus undeserving, poor mentality of, and we see that a lot of like, like just people in the system. I'm like in shelters where it's like, well, fuck that person because I'm following the rules, and if they're not following the rules, they shouldn't be here. And I can do it, which means they can do it. And there's a lot of tension that builds up in places like that, and we've seen that a lot of time. I mean, I do program evaluation, and we talk to youth and programs, and they get really mad about stuff like that. And you're like, yeah, that, I guess that would make me mad, but it's also kind of, it's a messaging that they've heard forever from everyone. So like, it's not their fault that's kind of indoctrinated into their brain. I don't know.
Oh, then the housing fights are like the worst. Why did so and so get housing and they were here shorter time than I was? Like, look, man, I don't know why, but y'all don't live the same life and have the same problems. And like having that conversation over ad nauseum, like literally every week, this conversation I'm having. Why did so? And like they're fighting and want to fight housing navigators and caseworkers over stuff like this. Like, hey,
it's just like, I mean, that's why like the vaccine is like a really good metaphor for it. It's just, there's not enough resources. So we have to figure out how to reallocate them in a way that's like fair and makes sense. And then it comes into this conversation of who's deserving versus not, or more deserving and not. And those are not questions that we should be answering. Like we don't have the capacity as individuals or even communities to to answer that question, because it's not a simple question, and there's a billion ways to cut it up, I guess. And it's just, we need more
Are
resources.
the
Like the
unhoused?
answer
I'm
is,
sorry.
yeah, go for it.
Are the unhoused
Or,
being vaccinated by you?
no, we haven't got, so right
Are you still
now
there?
in like the community, yeah, I'm here. Are we on a delay?
Okay. There's a little bit of latency.
Okay. I don't know.
Just keep going.
Okay, cool. The unhoused, yeah. So right now in Los Angeles, and I think everywhere, communities are trying to figure out how to vaccinate and prepare for vaccinating the unhoused community. And some of the research that I've done is, yeah, that acceptability rates are a lot lower than the general population. Just, I've been advocating right now, even though the vaccine isn't available, we need to really be starting to talk about it and think through how we build education and outreach and start engaging in conversations around the vaccine, because it's going to be a logistical challenge. But if we're not,
Nightmare. Yeah, it's a nightmare.
yeah, exactly. And so, but if we're, I was talking to one of the doctors at the Department of Public Health, and he was like, yeah, it's like logistically, it's crazy. It's like, these freezers and de-thawing and number, like how we get it and blah, blah, blah. It's like all of that timing stuff is really weird. Um, but he's like, but if we figure it all out, how to do it with the unhoused community, and then no one wants it, like that's like, we can't fuck it up. That we have to make sure that we're, getting people the information that they need of like why the vaccine is important for overall community health, like why it's a good thing, why there are low risks and things like that. Like there's still so much misinformation and distrust, and a lot of distrust for valid reasons, right? Historical reasons. I was talking to one young woman that we work with, and she was like, why would the government is giving out the vaccine? Why would I trust the government about anything on COVID? Because they've lied about a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it's like,
That's
it's
fair.
fucking fair. Yeah. Like they didn't do anything else right. So why would I trust them that this thing is safe? And I was like, yeah, I guess maybe
Yeah.
I should be thinking like that too. But I'm like, yeah, I was down for, I also want the vaccine.
But the whole booster, like you need another shot, sucks because have you ever tried to find someone that gets approved for housing? Like
Yeah.
it's totally hard. So imagine trying to find someone that, oh yeah, you need your booster.
Yeah.
Yeah, have fun.
I think
Who's going to
that's,
be in charge of that? Skip trace.
yeah. Well, at least like what they talked about here in LA is they're fingers crossed that they're going to get the one shot ones approved at some point in the next like couple of months, and then they're like, yes, that'll be for like more transient, high barrier, hard to access populations, which I think makes sense. And I'm like, yeah, it's not going to work, and yeah,
Well, my last question to you, because I know
great.
time is of the essence, and thank you for giving
This
me so
hour
much
went
time to talk.
fast. Yeah.
See, so tell people it's a fun show.
Yeah,
The hour
it's
just
fun.
flies by. You get a magic wand, a magic policy wand. What is the first policy you pass?
Oh, wow.
Or set of policies? I don't think there's probably one you could do. You probably have a set that you'd want to pass.
Yeah, no one told me when I became a social worker, and was like going to go into homelessness, and I was thinking that about that, how important, no one told me how important, zoning was. And I think there's a set of policies where we're able to, especially I'm thinking California, right? Um, to restructure the way that housing exists, and but also really like the rent is too damn high, right? and really address that policy, or that problem, freeze rents, create, um, you know, accessible rent and or accessible housing and like on such a higher level. Um, and that needs to happen. I also do really, I'm a really big fan of like cash transfer and like kind of, I think access to, kind of flexible income is going to be really important for stability and can do wonders for communities. And we've just seen resources super depleted from like many like intentionally depleted from communities, and how we need to really invest back into that. And I honestly think just like with cash, right? Like I'm a big fan of the Stockton demo project, that seed project. I don't know if you found
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that model of just like connecting, and they connect flexible cash spending and cash transfers to housing and resources like that. I'm a big fan of, one of the things that got me on like the cash transfer stuff is talking about how like how ineffective nonprofits are, and the way like how much money they cost, obviously, to, and how
Thank
little
you.
you get back often, right? We're making like small incremental changes with case managers and all this stuff like layered on top of it. So just like kind of the biggest bang for your buck. And then and we're already doing kind of, we already transfer resources to people in terms of food stamps and, um, other things like rental subsidies, but we just tell people what they can spend it on. So let's just give people money
Yeah.
and they figure out
Stop
what.
being so like,
Yeah, it's like,
patriarchal about it and be like, hey, you're in charge of your own life for a change.
yeah, and I think, it's not like gang and UBI whatever, but just like more infusing that as a policy, like comes with, as a resource that comes with other things like housing and other types of security. I think that could do, yeah, a lot.
Yeah, don't say Yang Gang, because then they hear it
They'll
off
like
into the
show
woods.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
like Candyman. You familiar with the horror
God.
movie Candyman? If you
Oh boy.
say Andrew Yang's name 3 times in your window,
God.
he comes in there to bestow upon you his neoliberal libertarian
Yeah.
UBI.
And yeah, I think, yeah. But like I think the Stockton model is a really good one, and that kind of, it's early in the stages though, but they use the cash transfers like and targeting it at certain communities at certain income levels. It's a little, and it comes with other resources that are optional of, other things like case management and stuff like that. So I think that could be a really cool
I'm
thing
not
that we should
100%
scale.
sure, but I think Mike Bloomberg has his hand in that.
Really, I know that. Um, does he? Well, is he part of the mayor thing?
I think so.
Um,
Yeah,
the the group,
because it was one of those mayor, the mayor group thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
the mayor. Because
that
I
guy.
love that Michael
Yeah.
Tubbs. Um,
Mm.
and I was really bummed. I'm looking forward to see what he does next. Um, from Stockton, since he's no longer mayor, which stinks. Um, but yeah, I think that's a great place, and we
I
should.
thought I liked I liked that program. I thought
Mhm.
that program made a lot of sense. If you really want to see how something like a UBI works, I thought that program pretty much laid it out. I was writing down a note so I could link what it is in the
Mhm.
description of the show.
Yeah.
Also, she is Robin Petering from Hello Dogtown is the name of her organization. It is
Well,
a
Hello Dogtown is my podcast.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
it's fine. I have like too many things. It's very hard to track me down. Um,
Damn it.
LENSCO is the name of my org, but yeah, just Robin Petering.
Damn it, Robin. I'm misbranding you all over the internet.
I got a lot of brands, so it's okay.
Was there anything you want to say before we stop recording?
No, I think this is great. I'm happy that we're able to cover so many different things. So hopefully it makes sense in a narrative. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me, Robin, and
Yeah.
please don't hang up.
I won't.